5 o'clock, call the workshop together. And let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Thankfully, the weather held off, and we're all here without any great fuss. One thing I just handed out to you is a page and a half, follows down that summary sheet of the departments that we were working our way down there at the last meeting. So anything that isn't in bold is we've at least run through it. What is in bold is what we haven't done yet. So that's that part of it. The other bit is that tonight we're looking at 3 departments. We're looking at wastewater, and we have department head there. We're looking at EMS, and we're looking at police department. Obviously, next Monday is a holiday. We'll not be having a meeting. We will have another meeting on next Thursday, where we will be looking at public works. We'll be looking at the rec center, municipal building, transfer station, waterfront. We're looking at that, and those presentations. I mean, you've all had the opportunity to talk to the department heads before the budget process even started. So introductions will not be needed, and I think that'll move along pretty well. And at that point, we let our run through of all the departments, and the last Thursday in the month, I believe it's the 27th, Kathy will be back, and we can feed all the revised numbers, whatever has been revised, we feed them through, and then that will be a preliminary final document, for want of a better term. So that's how it goes, and I'm glad to get it to run through in February to get it done. So first up, we've got wastewater. I don't know where you'll sit. I can give him my chair if you want. But, what I do is I run through the overview, and then there'll be some areas where need some supplementary remarks, and I follow into at that point. Sure. So, wastewater. Okay, this is an enterprise account, as you know, so the accounting is a little bit different. We have a consent, this is pretty much the last one in the book. We have a consent decree with DEP that, I won't say governs our lives, but reduces the options we have and forces us to make certain expenditures. And just how it is. So Rick has put in his full year, done a nice job, and Rob is beginning to catch on to the fact that he'll be left alone shortly, and it'll all be his. So looking at wastewater, it'll be page 81. Nothing. Full-time wages drop a little bit. Basically, there's a new supervisor, and when he gets through his probation period, which I'm not going to be challenged on that, and there'll be some increase at that point. With regard to, so when you look at the personnel summary line, which would be 1012, we're looking at $10,000 less in that personnel category, $10,000 less than last year. Electricity about the same, dropping down phone and internet. We've had some upgrades on that, so 6,000 instead of 5,000. Propane, it's some reduction in costs, so it'll be you can see 800 instead of 1,200 is budgeted. Water, I guess water bills just have gone up, but that includes ours. You get charged for the sewer too, don't you?
Yes.
That's the fun part. So then website alarms shows a reduction there, but we're working security-wise, right through the town, looking at all the buildings. We'll be getting a quote in due course. There's too much funny stuff out there for us just to hope that nothing will happen to us. Gray water holding tank. Why is that up so much? I didn't notice it. Wait.
No, the gray water,
Oh, that's just venue.
that's for down at the waterfront, I guess. I think there was some interest by the waterfront committee to have a holding tank down on the waterfront. I think Ted did some work on it.
Okay, well, Ted will be along next time.
Yeah.
Advertising, very modest, top of the second page, recording fees, and licensing a bit higher, I mean, no option there. Contracted work, we've got a lot of work to do down there, not just what Oliver is lined up to do. Oliver is the big one, trying to bring us up to speed with the DEP, all these requirements to study. We interviewed some people. Jeff was there, I was there. We picked Oliver, and a lot of work to be done, and that's just the intro. Farther down the line, we've got to spend some real money. Flex cards, let's see. Sludge disposal, those fees just plain went up. That's when we process what we can, then the sludge is taken to, what is the name of that place?
Unity.
And no option, just the way it is. And I know we've talked about a screen and some sort of pressing thing that would reduce the volume and the moisture content, but we don't have that yet. That'd be 40 grand. So, water system, fees just went up, nothing we can control. Laboratory services, and that would be line 34. Laboratory services about the same as last year. More and more important, the DEP is requiring more testing. In fact, since we started this budget, they've extended the window that has to be tested a full year as opposed to about 8 months. And now it's and testing for more materials. So that's, again, it's evolving. Permits, $500 increase there. Nothing on the railroad crossing. Property casualty. We just get the bill on the insurances, and that's about it. It's not necessarily all our claims, it's everybody else's claims as a class. Workers' comp, you'll notice workers' comp is shown here because we've got, as I said, an enterprise account, so we have to put down all the relevant expenses. The other departments, as you know, we consolidated them in municipal insurances. Unemployment, not significant. Health insurance, very little change. It's just a matter of which employees take what level of coverage. Dental, an increase to employees, it's about $1,000 more. Again, it's just what the bill is. Stipends in lieu of, on the next page, Department 400, line 4008. If people don't take health insurance, they get a stipend of $200 a month. Life insurance dropping down, not that dramatic. Supplies, office supplies unchanged at 1,000. Postage, small increase from 300 to 400. Equipment, there's a lot going on with equipment and a lot of repairs and hopefully some purchases. So that line is reduced somewhat. Gasoline, fewer gallons, price is down a little bit. Diesel price is down a little bit, so there's a saving of $466. Cleaning supplies, 50-15. Did you buy a new something or other?
The reason, let's see, the supply lines moved around a little bit. Some of the custodial supplies were put in another account last year. So we went back and looked at the details and reflected it what we thought would be in the right line item.
Okay. Thank you, William. And general supplies, the chemicals increased from 14,300 last year to 20,000 this year. Basically, the new chemicals have to be kinder and gentler and they're more expensive. And that's just the way it is, less residue, less challenges to the system. Safety equipment, $2,200, same as last year. So the supplies and equipment line, the summary is 35,000 instead of 32,000. Buildings, basically there's nothing.
No, that's the one I told you I get the number of,
Other,
30K.
that's, okay.
Yep.
That's why I put the question mark there.
Yep.
Vehicles, pretty much the same. You've got the sludge truck needs some work, but we've got a mechanic in public works that's very, very good, so a lot of that work can now be done in-house. And so repairs, the summary there, 2,850 last year, 2,500 this year. Turn the page. Staff expenses, 7001, unchanged at 800. Some meetings, 500, same as last year, so the total line is 2,000 last year, 2,000 this year. Uniforms, same as last year, 1,000. FICA Medicare, a little bit less than last year, but that's a function of salary, just a straight percentage. Same with FICA Medicare and ICMA or PERS. So you notice on staff expenses, last year it was 27,800, this year 23,205. Loan, and annual payment on the USDA loan, which runs to 2045, is 47,629 a year. And let's see. Again, as this is an enterprise account, there are certain things the accounting is a little bit different. So DEP would like to see a contingency of 2.5%. It's suggested by Maine. Rural water and depreciation isn't something we generally show up in an operating budget, but the accounting people like it to show up here, and of course it distorts the numbers. We didn't show depreciation last year, as you can see on the far left, zero. So put in the budget for this year. We'd probably skip it next year because we're doing other things. We'd be increasing expenditure on equipment, and so we can offset the depreciation with the new equipment. Is what we're planning. So when you look at the totals, last year 2020 was 750,636, and this year proposed at 671 plus the 30,000 I just mentioned, and all of this stuff we'll have in our next run of the budget.
Plus the 30? Did you say plus the 30?
Yeah. That was
30,000?
Yeah.
Plus the
So
contingency, John, that'll be somewhere between 15 and 16,000. So it'll be plus 46, which gives you a total right around 717,023.
Okay. So contingency 16,000 plus.
717.
023.
So contingency 16,000, and we're adding into buildings, which is line 6001 on the previous page. 70, that will be 30.
The only other account I need to go back and look at, we changed alarm companies. The monthly bill is less with them. But I worked a deal out that I had to pay for the equipment. The equipment was about $6,000. So I paid $2 this year, and they agreed that they'd wait until the next budget to collect the other $4. But I think the savings in the monthly bill just about pays for that, but I have to go back and verify that.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the equipment,
Yep,
you went from 10,000 to 5,000?
because most of it will be in your capital.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking of how bad off we are down there. That,
Yeah, and you'll see another thing about equipment regarding, putting something else on the warrant.
Some of the stuff that's in the capital, can it be put into this equipment line? Does it have to go in the capital?
Well, per your consent decree, we have to have 66, let's see, hold on a minute, I want to make sure I get this right. The capital reserve has to be 61.6.
Okay,
So I want to make sure that we had that amount in there and I would take out for equipment there. And I think when we go a little further on in our explanation, we'll see what else we want to do.
okay, so you're not done with this?
No,
I didn't think so.
no.
This is mainly operational, not quite, but mainly.
Question on your overtime line, if you get like, say, the capital expense, where I know when you came to the budget committee, you mentioned generators for all the, when the lights go out. Will your overtime line go down if some of that is funded from the capital? Because they're, I'm
Yes.
assuming your auto.
It should go down a little bit, but you still have to maintain, and then there are other details that go along with that. But the main reason for generators is to prevent overflows and having the DEP come down quite hard on you.
But you wouldn't have to have the resources go and actually hook up the generator and.
You well, I'm only looking at 5 generators. You have 18 pump stations, but these pump stations are in series, so you gotta be careful because I've talked with Rob about this a little bit, even if you have an automatic transfer, if one of them that's further on down, the stream doesn't come on, you're in deep trouble. So I think in this particular case, that one person can go out and make sure they're operating, and you don't need to have 2 people dragging generators all over the place. But it'll make a much better system in the end. We can talk more when we go through what I'm asking for in regards to town warrant in regards to that.
No, go ahead.
As you know, the board has approved that engineering study with Oliver, and we interviewed people and so on and so forth. So the first stage of that has to be done from current year because they want to hit the spring flow. Because we don't catch the spring flow this year, we're going to have to wait for the spring flow. Next year, it'll push everything back. So Rick has that money within his current budget that he can get started.
Oh, what we do is for the cap, which is, the sea level rise resiliency thing. I have 20K, I believe, in the existing budget because we held off on doing some further projects. So that will get them started, and that really needs to be done first before you do anything with the plant, because you need to make the decision whether you want to stay at the plant, what's involved, or relocating. So we want to get that one started right off, and then we, as John referred to, we want to do a flow analysis in the spring, because it's spring and fall, and so they estimated it'd be $5,000 to do that part, which would be done probably sometime in March or April, instead of waiting for a whole nother year. And they were kind enough to say that if I don't have the money in this year's budget and it doesn't get approved for the rest of the study money in the town warrant for next year, they're willing to absorb the $5,000 cost. That's how dedicated this company is to having a relationship with Wiscasset, which is pretty extraordinary for an engineering firm to do that.
And this test, is that a requirement from DEP?
Well, they want you to do, yes, it is. It is part of that whole parcel that a complete analysis of the thing is required, so.
I just want to make sure we're doing the testing that DEP requires us to do. that it's in the budget, the funding is in the budget, because I don't want DEP back on us again.
I understand that. And I'm glad they haven't been, they've been more supportive in the last year, and we
Good.
haven't had any issues, so I'd like to continue that trend.
Okay, thank you.
So, that's this year. Going forward, what we're looking for, on the warrant will be two components. One will be completing the study, which, and some, if you want to call it incidentals, would be approximately $150,000, some of which would be advanced by the town and reimbursed by, or principal forgiveness by the DEP. And then beyond that, we've got purchases of equipment, which is primarily the generators. So anyway, 150 has to go, or very close to it, has to be on the capital budget. I know you gave me this summary here, Rick. Do you want to clarify what I said?
Okay, so the climate adaptation plan, that 20,000 will get reimbursed by the DEP, but, so I'm taking that out of this year's money. We talked about the 5,000 for doing the spring flow. So the rest,
I forgot to make that announcement.
Well, I just did announce it.
okay. So, for the rest of the engineering studies, it would be $100,000, which includes $15,000 if we do any cammering into the sewer system, of which we would be given $50,000 in principal forgiveness. So we need to come up with another $55,000 to cover that for the engineering studies. Then I gave a list of projects, and I'm wondering if, I'm recommending and I'm asking for support to put that on the town warrant. That would be $150,000. And to me, there's different ways to figure out how to fund that. But if we don't start doing some of these projects, like this $150,000 worth of projects now, I would end up moving them to this budget that you have now, and the ones that are in this budget now would have to be moved a whole nother year. That's something I wouldn't recommend. And then my recommendation to put on the town warrant also is to allow up to $200,000 for purchase and installation of 5 generators and installation of 1 existing. But what I'd like to do is see if I can apply for a loan so we can get some principal forgiveness, and if not, then I'd have this money to do that. I think that project might be big enough so that we can get some money. And basically that's for pump station 1, 2, 3, 4, and 10, and taking the military surplus generator and putting it out at pump station 7.
Now, would that mean all the pump stations have generators?
No, you have 18 and this covers 6 of them. We do have 3 portable generators.
Mhm.
So this takes a lot in, and not all have generator connections. We just got one done this week. And some of the pump stations, not only do they not have generator connections, but some of them are very low flow. So you can go 2 or 3 days. And then part of my other project was to get a portable pump. So a lot of these pump stations have bypasses, so you could bring out the portable pump and bypass as well. So it gives you a lot more flexibility, or flexibility that we really don't have now.
Did you have an automatic start?
I want to see what the incremental cost is.
Because then you either have to have gas or propane, to have the automatic start, one or the other.
You can have automatic start for a diesel or propane.
Diesel or propane, yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't gotten far enough to figure out what the incremental cost is and whether that's the way to go, or do I have enough money to put one more generator somewhere else? So it's kind of,
Okay.
You had some power failures up in the last couple of weeks, and
Yes.
your guys were rushing around.
so
making work.
when I was superintendent, we had at least one outage. It was on Route 1 and Birch Point Road. And it happened luckily late at night when the flows are down. There's no way you can cover those pump stations if it's a peak time, a peak flow. You know, whether it's in the morning or during the evening. And also, the DEP has been writing letters to Wiscasset since 2010 about having generators installed. So, I know I always felt uncomfortable, and then Rob can tell you about the latest outage, which was just in the last week or two.
One of the problems that you have is that when the power goes out, the security company calls, and in one phone call, they say, you've got pump station number 1 is out, pump station number 2 is out, pump station number 5 is out, pump station number 7 is out. And it's suddenly you're juggling 8 balls at once. And with all of those out, it wasn't every single one, but it was like select ones where the power had been knocked out by, I'm assuming, wind and tree branches hitting the wires. We had 4 portable generators. And when that call came in, I immediately called our 2 guys in, and I came in and said, look, it's pump station 1, 2, 7, you know, start looking and seeing if they're indeed out, and we'll get the generators out there. So they came out, and this is not uncommon. The power comes back on at 1 and 2 and 7, but it remains out at number 10 and number 12. So our guys get there and the power's restored to some of them. So they just reset everything, and then we continue until all of them have been surveyed, and then there was 2 that remained with no power. We had generators that could power those 2. We took them out. One of them, the power remained out for about 2.5 hours. The other stayed out until the following morning, about 11 o'clock. So from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock the next day, we had a generator out there at pump station number 2, which is right on Route 1. So what happens when we have to take those generators here and there, we're shuttling them all over the place, that is time consuming. And just the act of getting the generator, taking it out there, firing it up, going back and get the next generator, taking that one out, firing it up. You have to, and then there's phone calls that follow to the security company, because the security company will tell us, hey, the power came back on such and such. So you're doing a delicate balance of, do I keep the guys in because they get 2 hours for an emergency call at night? So we hung out for the 2 hours. Sure enough, one of the powers came back on. We went out to get the generator, and it went back out again. So, you know, you're dealing with this type of thing. What we'd like to do, when Rick's talking about getting those other generators, to give us about 8 or 9 of them, 5 of them would be, ideally, stationed at the important pump stations. The ones that are getting all the flow. You're getting the ones from, particularly number 1, 2, 3, and 4, the water gets pumped from all the rest of them to number 3. And then number 3's stuff goes to number 2. And then more of that goes to number 1. So what Rick was saying was, there are critical pump stations that are taking all the flow. The ones that are out on the fringes are much less critical. And particularly 2 or 3 of them have very low flow. Like he said, they're out on the fringes. There's a handful of houses, or maybe if the wet well is big enough to handle 3 days worth of people flushing and taking showers and stuff. So ideally, getting those first 4 or 5 out to pump stations, stationary all the time. If we got the outages, we could go and quickly switch them over. Just have one guy come in and he can switch over number 1, go to the next one, number 2. So anyway, what that would empower us to do is that we wouldn't have to worry about the massive overflows at those larger pump stations. the ones that are out on the fringes, we could still keep 3 or 4 portable ones out here. If we've got the first 5 covered, then we can shuttle the other ones around.
Okay.
Ideally, and can I please speak to the transfer switches that you were referring to? Automatic transfer switches are, as electrical components go, fairly costly. And that's why Rick was saying, the cost of putting those transfer switches might pay for another generator. And that was why we would just go with the existing switches where we'd have to manually switch it from CMP power to generator power.
Okay.
So that was, just wanted you to be clear.
Thank you.
Sherry, you were looking puzzled when they were talking about the list of equipment. You said it's been handed out, not today, but earlier to the board. I get that. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to clarify, on the bottom line here, before we added the 30,000 and 16,000, is the main difference between the 2020 and 2021 budget that depreciation, or is that what you were saying?
That's a big, well, obviously, that's a big number.
Okay, I mean, it is pretty darn close there
Yeah,
to
that's-
1,000, so just wanted,
And then
didn't want to have to
another-
add them all.
And then, yeah, as we said, the contingency, how we treat that. I mean, contingency is all very well, it's almost a luxury. If you've got so much stuff undone that you need to do, so contingency is sort of a joke at that point. I don't mean it the way it sounds, but it's kind of trivial when you're hundreds of thousands of dollars behind where you should be. And that's 2 cents worth.
I have another question.
Yes,
The last page, the annual loan payment,
yes.
and I was looking, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but are we over allocating in the budget and only paying a certain amount as like a variable rate, or
No, it's a fixed loan, fixed rate.
is it something that we can refinance, or what's the, I mean, I'm just wondering what the rate is on something like that. It
no,
goes
no.
up to 2045.
We could refinance, but I don't know what the terms are. It's just,
I don't know if I have that because it's a USDA loan. Hold on a minute.
but the irritating thing about these long-term loans is the asset is already close to depreciated by the time,
Sure.
25 years out.
But we're still paying on it, so I mean, but, I was just curious, like I said, I mean, we seem to always allocate,
2.5%.
Oh, that's pretty good.
See, that's pretty.
Yeah,
low.
no, that was worth the question, I mean. But I mean, I guess my question is, why are we keeping on saying, like, 2019 budget 61, we paid 22? And if it's a fixed rate loan, we should know what the interest payment is.
We do, we just 2.5. I think.
The payment amount every, every January, it's supposed to be $47,629. It's the same every year.
It'll be principal and interest.
What the average?
No.
The principal on that loan was
Good point.
I mean,
90,000.
so if the annual payment is always 47,000, why in 2019 actual was it 22,945?
That's a good question.
I don't know, but here's the bond, the 2016 bond. That was before I was here, and that's all I know. But it says here that the principal was 974,000, and then with the principal interest through 2045, it'd be $1,381,241. And if you like, we can provide you with a copy of that.
No, I don't need to see, I was just wondering,
Okay.
like, looking at the actuals, I mean, if I was variable, maybe then I can understand why there's a difference between, like, 2019 actual and 2019 budget and stuff, but,
To me, it looks like a half year payment.
I was just gonna say, it looks like maybe another payment came in before the end of the year, end of the fiscal year.
Here's not a calendar year.
Okay, obviously, we've got some numbers to adjust, which we will do, not before the next meeting, but the subsequent meeting. And I will work with Rick on explaining some of the big numbers and what is headed for the warrant, and what the timing of, the different expenditures we're hoping for, but we do have to get that spring flow thing taken care of. Otherwise, we push everything back. Oliver was hoping to get the whole project done by the end of this year. And what that does is, it's a roadmap to identify everything that needs to be fixed. estimates of how much it's gonna cost. And then a big part of it too is finding the funding. Because sometimes there are loans available, other times you might be lucky and get some principal forgiveness based on the priorities that are assigned to a particular project, like sea level rise is very fashionable, and so there may be some extra money. I'm more concerned at this point making sure nothing breaks down. And that's the immediate part, but longer term, we have to look at everything, the life of the plant, the different components. Whether somewhere down the line we put the money into maintaining what we have, making it more resilient, or whether we just bite the bullet and say 25 years out, we'd be putting a new treatment plant someplace, don't know where, and start planning for it, maybe even reserving money for it, which generally we don't do, we just wait till it happens. And that's not just Wiscasset, that's everybody. All right, any, yes, Chief?
So when you said he hopes to have the figures in on how much we need to fix
Yeah.
everything at the end of the year, you mean the fiscal year,
No, I mean calendar year.
the calendar year?
Because what we do is well, obviously have the spring and the fall measurement. We also have high season, low season, and nothing ordinary should happen in the winter, and it'd be nice to have the winter to get ourselves organized and prioritize whatever comes next. So this time next year we'll be taking the advice and figuring out how we can get there, what the priorities are, what's immediate, what's intermediate, what's long term, and that's the whole purpose. We can't really do anything until we've done the study. We don't know what we're dealing with, nor with the DEP, except our guesses as to what we need to do and why, and that's a big part of why we hire qualified people.
But they're in approval of this process right now.
Oh, DEP, oh, yeah,
Yes,
oh, yeah,
yes.
we can't.
So they're being patient.
They've been pretty good, actually. Rick's done a nice job. And they've, they haven't pulled their punches, but they've been reasonable in the timelines and the expectations. And as long as they see good faith effort in upgrading equipment, systems, filling reports, all of that stuff, they're not bad to work with. They really are not, which is great. No point in being punitive. We can only do so much. As long as we are doing it, that's our best defense. I'll second this.
Yeah.
Okay, we got up earlier this morning, Chief.
I always get up at 4:30. Be before me.
All right. Oh, let me be on the
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Very much.
What I did here was, remember the sheets you all got at the beginning? I filled in the blanks, and of course, as you've seen, the numbers are not finalized. And as I say, it's evolving, or organic, or whatever it may be. And so Dennis and I, I'll get you more now. Dennis and I have been working through the budget, and you'll probably see over here EMS would be line 114. You probably see an 18.7% increase there, which is now what do we get? Got under 8%.
We were at 8.5.
8.5. So, as I said, we're still working on this budget. We're changing numbers as we correcting numbers as we go, and any omissions we're trying to address that. So,
For wastewater, is this 717 more of what should be here?
yeah, it'll be,
That's what's going to be, okay, just wasn't sure if maybe that was going somewhere
This was put
else.
together a week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, and you want? Okay, getting into the EMS. Okay, this is probably 114 is on, actually, it says it, that's not it. What color tax is it?
Yellow.
Yeah, okay, yellow, no, mine's white. Mine's white. Anyway, so, if you look at page 3 of this, the expense total is shown on this one as, I believe it's 8.9%, not the figure that you see here, which is, but that's right, yeah. We got 641 on your colored sheet here, and we got 589 here, so that was after Dennis and I worked primarily the schedule, who was going to do what, as you know. Yeah,
Okay.
but we're down to 8.9 now, that number.
Okay, we're now at 8.9.
18.7 isn't right?
No.
8.9.
Now it's 8.9.
It's approximately 8.9%. We probably haven't totally finished. There's a little bit extra we can work around, but not a huge amount. The big thing was, if you recollect, we hired an assistant, what do we call it? The assistant director, and she was hired in the last year's budget. And the change, the major change we made between the original number you see on this sheet and what you see on the sheets in your book is that we scheduled Aaron to be 2 years, 2 days a week would be working with a crew as opposed to doing the administrative stuff. And the whole purpose of having the two of them is they're both highly qualified paramedic. And so we wanted the ability to add that level of expertise to the whole shift, the whole schedule.
So when the director's on, the assistant director is not,
As a rule, that's right.
as a rule.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing, to string out not just say it's, Dennis is there for 40 or 50 hours and for the rest of it, you back.
Because that was the original thought, and you
So she
requested that.
She acts pretty much as a floater and just fills in where we need to. So some days we might both be on, but she's actually on a crew working on the truck, so she's not just sitting at the desk all day long.
I told you I was gonna bring this one up.
Oh, yeah.
I do have.
It's your budget after all.
Thank you. I do have a problem with the 3% increase. And I'll tell you why, because we're giving everyone else 2%. And I just feel that this is my opinion only, that it needs to be the same all the way across the board. But that's my opinion.
The reason that I threw in the 3% is because once we get into this a little bit further, you'll see we're requesting a lot more than that for the other providers. So.
Okay. Ben, did you have something?
You're suggesting that for all department heads across the board?
Yeah, 2%.
Okay, because I've been looking at them and they're all
They're all
different.
2%.
Well, no, they're not. Oh,
No, they're not.
the regular employees are 2%. We've still got the union to settle. But,
Department heads are all over the place.
yeah.
Some of them. But I know Parks and Rec is 2%,
Mhm.
and so is the transfer Public Works.
All
I
right,
looked at
the
it.
police chief is 5%,
That-
wastewater is 3%.
That will be another discussion at the next time.
That's why I just asked where you were going with that.
But that's what I assumed, that when we gave a percentage, it was always the same across the board. That's all I'm saying.
It is, we had that issue a couple of years ago. Remember when the code commissioner got
Right.
and we brought that one back down.
I mean, if it can be justified, that's a different story. But that caught my eye when I went through the rest of them.
And you'll also notice that the assistant director increased the hours from 35 to 40. So that's part of the increase in the personnel line. And let's see, you'll notice that the part-time in 1003 is really been transferred down to 1059, now known as per diem. It's the same it's covering the same people. You know, it was, the part-timers now are showing 0 in 2021, and the per diem is showing 307.
I see that.
And that's all it is.
That's the part-time workers?
Yeah, part-timers now are described as per diems.
They're,
So you can see the increase in the personnel from 365 to 421, which is a 15% increase.
Are you really, is it feasible to not have any overtime allocated?
Yeah, the part-timers, that's one of the reasons we hire part-timers, because generally speaking, the benefits are more expensive if you convert them to hours, they're more expensive than the wages. Quite-
how many people do we have on the roster?
24.
You have 24. That would be within the per diem.
Less.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much the industry standard, unless you're dealing with a city, big city,
Okay.
and they. Yeah.
Yes.
So the per diem actually goes from 258 to 307?
Right.
Yeah.
And is that mostly an increase in personnel, or is that?
Yeah, it's all, that whole line is personnel. I mean, that whole section is personnel.
So we're adding more people to get to the 307?
2% across the board, 35 to 40 hours for the assistant director. And I think there's some additional coverage too. Dennis?
Beg your pardon?
You had some additional coverage on some of the shifts.
It depends, if we're having a severe storm, we might carry an additional crew over, just because it takes so long to get to a call and then finish it.
Somebody else?
So,
But before we hire a crew to cover a storm, what about our mutual aid facilities? That are, like, for example, Bath is a 24-hour facility, just staffed all the time. Why should the town of Wiscasset pay for what if, when you have mutual aid?
if I'm not mistaken.
Bath charges us
I was gonna say,
$300.
don't they charge $300 or $600?
It's cheaper for me to put 2 people here at our wages than it is for me to pay Bath to come over here. And in a storm, it's gonna take them quite a while to get here.
Didn't know, I had to ask that.
Yep. No,
How much do do they make an hour, the per diem? Does it range? Give me a range.
so, we're paying between $13.26 for a basic EMT and $17.34 for a paramedic. And we are the lowest paid service in the county.
I was gonna say, you were low. Did you get an increase? Did they get an increase in this?
So what I've asked for in this is a range of $15 to $20. So, yes. So Booth Bay Region this year up there, so their paramedic pay is now $22.35 an hour. That puts us at $5 an hour less than what Booth Bay is paying.
That's not cheap.
This $307,000, does that cover what you want?
Yes, after we made some arrangements with the schedule with Aaron to help offset that.
Okay, that would cover the 24 people. Okay, all right. Judy?
So over the years, it's gone from can't get enough on the roster to, well, we have them, but they're not dedicated to. So is this, are you feeling comfortable with the 24, which is more than
I could put on 36 people and it won't change this number, because we only put on so many people per shift.
Yeah, but
So-
I mean that you can depend on. That would.
I have 22 very dependable people right now. Yes, I have a very good crew. I'm very pleased with what we have right now.
Has your crew increased in the last year?
Yeah, we had like 12 people when I started.
Yeah, that's a huge improvement.
Yeah,
That's
it's just, and if you look at the overtime at this point last year, we were over $50,000 in overtime. I've spent $3,900 so far this.
That's excellent, excellent.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Good job, Jen.
And 24/7 coverage.
And 24/7 coverage. We have, holidays tend to be a little bit dicey, so that's where Aaron and I come in, because that's what we do. But yes, I've had 24/7 coverage.
Okay.
Yep.
Judy?
What's minimum wage? Is it
12.
12, just up
It's
to
12 now, yeah. So we did have to increase one of our people.
When you get to the rec budget, you'll see it,
Yeah.
because they were coming up from 10, 10 and a half, 11 to 12.
So Judy, when you go back to why I put Aaron and I in for 3%, because these guys are getting between 11 and a 15% raise.
Okay, okay,
So that's why I,
okay. Thank you for explaining that. Anyone else have a question? Okay, John?
Yeah. Utilities increase, which I'm assuming meant that wasn't going to be properly last year, because if you look back in 19, it was budgeted at 3,000. Last year budgeted under 2,000. This coming year, 4,250. So some misallocation.
no, I think we came in under budget last year, but what happened this year was we had a new, the town office phone system, which I didn't budget for, which is costing me $960 a year more. And I want to upgrade the equipment in the trucks. We still have flip phones in the ambulances. And so I'm just looking to upgrade them to better equipment. So those two things are part of that.
They're back. No, they're back. Have you seen?
Yes,
them
I've
on
seen
TV?
it.
They're
Yes,
back.
yeah.
Oh, they are.
So the end result on the services line is the same as last year. 32,000 last year, 31,270. And that's, but all these zeros down from 3032 to 3074, that's all included. That's all included in the billing, the 10,500. So that's just a matter of where it's placed on the accounts. But the end result is almost exactly the same. Property casualty, 4001. That's just what the bill says. Workers' comp, as in pretty much everything, has been moved to the municipal insurance line. Health insurance originally budgeted last year for 34,000, and Dennis's coverage is only 11,400, and that's the thing you can't plan for if you get an employee coming in, needs full coverage versus a single employee. Big difference in the cost. And so we can't go searching for people who won't take our benefits, but on the other hand, sometimes we get lucky and somebody doesn't take benefits. Yes.
I have a question. If you increase the hours of the assistant director, will that not increase our health insurance?
She doesn't take our health insurance.
Oh, thank you. I answered that question.
So that's, excuse me, that's the insurance, and you can see it dropped from 44,000 last year to 23,000 this coming year. So supplies and equipment, let's see. Oh, that one's all the way down. It's almost identical to last year, 27,200 last year, 27,600 this year, and some pretty much, with the exception of the general supplies line, pretty much the same numbers all the way down.
I just asked that that be broke out more than just general supplies so that I can see more of what I'm spending on, with just a little more specificity, so that's why it was changed.
Let's see. Repairs and maintenance. I meant to ask you about that. It looks like you didn't put much in for vehicle maintenance, 10,000 last year.
We split it out this year, so last year was 10,000 for both trucks.
Oh.
This year we split it out for each truck, so I can see what I'm spending on each truck.
Okay.
And that, so that's actually should be, well, I
Okay,
see
you
it's
put it-
14,000.
I see where
Yeah.
that's at.
Yeah.
My mistake. And again, we've had a lot of the budget assistance from mechanical and public works. That's been a huge plus.
Yeah.
We have a lot of non-public works vehicles up there on a pretty regular basis for all sorts of reasons.
And I did tell John that, you know, we've put in a capital request this year for an ambulance. If that does happen, we can reduce that on those lines.
And we just,
How about billing? Is there anything, is that getting better or is it?
very good question.
Collections, more
Yes.
specific.
Yes.
Yeah, the billing works fine. No, it's a horrible reimbursement system, promises made by whoever it is, and, they may or may not pay. Then there's times when stuff doesn't get paid, we can't get it collected. Dennis has been working with a collection agency without a ton of success, so now he's trying more individual approach for some of the bigger, some of the bigger amounts for whatever it might be. And let's call it, you're not gonna chase somebody for $100. When it gets into significant money, that's something Dennis is working on. And the other is, as we're billing our partners, if you will, the towns that are using our services, it's difficult to come up with a realistic fee. All very well to say we bill you such and such, but if we're only getting half of it, a quarter of it, it seems rather pointless to even bill it in the first place. So Dennis is trying to work out some pricing models where we say, look, here's the dollar amount, and however it comes, it'll be so much a call, and the town makes up the difference. How have we done so far? We're in the development stage, but it's pointless budgeting, these big revenues knowing that very little is going to come, we're going to have big write-offs. And I don't have a solution. Dennis he's put together some numbers, and we'll refine them a bit and see what actually might fly. That'd be practical, but on the other hand, as a service center, we don't want to be carrying people. We've got to be nice to them because we want them as partners elsewhere.
When do the contracts run out? for
This year, yeah.
Westport
So
and Dresden?
Yeah, so I've been working on getting something together for you, fairly quickly, because I know Dresden is starting their stuff. And I talked
Have
to
you gotten any feedback from Westport or Dresden as to whether they are going to continue or not?
I've talked to Mike Henderson last week, and he actually asked me if he was still interested in pursuing that. And I have. I haven't talked to anybody at Westport, but Mr. Richardson was by a month or so ago, and certainly expressed an interest to continue.
Okay.
So I'll have slightly different approach for your contracts this year, but I think it's quite workable. I think you'll be pleased with it. As far as the revenues go, I think actually our revenues are running a little ahead of what I projected for last year. I think we were at 58% of our budget, and we were at like 66% of our revenue. So we're a little ahead. But I am trying a new approach on some of these people that aren't paying to try to get something from them, and we'll see. We're just getting started with it, so hopefully I'll have something for you in a couple of months.
Okay.
The rest of it running down, repairs and maintenance, as you can see, 20,000 was budgeted last year, and 25,500 budgeted this year. As everybody will tell you, repair lines go down when the equipment gets newer, and if the ambulance happens, both ambulances are in about similar condition. I think they're even the same year.
They're the same year, yes.
Same year.
What year are they?
They're 2012.
And one came from,
And one was bought used from the city of Auburn.
Right.
Right.
so it's better, as you well know, to have these staggered, just so you don't get a purchase required to get two ambulances the same year. You're better staging 5 years apart, or whatever it might be.
If I'm correct though, 88, the chassis is a 2012. How old is the box? Because that was a
That's correct. The chassis the box is a 2006. That box is actually in pretty good shape.
still though, it's a
Yes.
technology improves every year. That's a 14-year-old box.
Exactly.
Is it aluminum or is it steel?
It's aluminum.
So, let's see, dues and fees. We budgeted 1,300 this year as opposed to 0 last year.
And that was just a move from, we just took that same amount out of the contract and moved it down because it was for, really for a different purpose, so.
Okay. And uniforms are still budgeting 6,000, but we only spent 835 year to date. Is there a cycle here, or?
I think we spent more than that.
Well,
I've been holding off just to, you know, to keep an eye on things and see how things go, so, but I do have to, as new people come in, we have to buy them uniforms, and as they turn them in, we buy new uniforms. We changed over to these from, which are a little less expensive than what we were doing, so that's what saved us some money.
So almost
I do have a purchase that needs to go in, I've just been holding off.
Okay.
How many uniforms do they get?
If they're part-time, they just get one shirt and one pair of pants.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And the FICA and Medicare is based on the wages. Nothing, no negotiation there. And same contributions towards retirement, whether they go, instead of retirement 7.6 or ICNA, 6%. That's the maximum. So anyway, that's on the operating side, that's the run through. Little tidying up.
So there's no depreciation in this department?
No, there is not depreciation in this. You know, the accounting, municipal accounting is a funny thing. And that's why the enterprise account looks quite different than they're saying, 100,000 for depreciation.
Yeah.
And we could probably get away with that if we add $100,000 worth of new equipment, then it looks like you don't need to depreciate. The values are there. Anyway, so that's my 2 cents worth on that. And obviously with the capital budget, there's an ambulance in there plus the stretcher, neither of which is cheap. Okay. Anyway.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay. I have police with a bike tab, I don't know if you have a bike tab. At this point, police department is up almost approximately 19%. The biggest driver on this, no pun intended, because it's like in the two too, but biggest driver on this is an extra patrolman and increasing the hours for Nicole from what, 32 to 40. So, so that's how it runs for the salaries. Full-time salaries would go from 106 to 150,000 last year to this year. Part-timers, because of the increase in the full-timers, but the drop in the part-timer expenditures. Part-timers are a mixed bag. Some of them don't have a ton of experience. They're not tied to the departments. They may work for other departments, and it's hard to schedule them. Whereas with full-timers, the chief has more reliability from the people can assign certain shifts on a regular basis. So dropping down to 1005, that's the administrative assistant, would go from 27,500 this year to 35,000 next year. Training hours, when are they going to be finished in the academy? We've got 2 of them there, right?
Just one now.
Just one.
He'll be done in May.
Okay, Criminal Justice Academy. Perfect attendance and sick pay, that's $2,000 or $2,400, not a huge difference. The other line is incentives and such like. We're looking at, as I said, $400 difference. Holiday pay, because you got more people, there's more holiday pay, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's such a big jump.
We can check on that.
Yeah, it might have been because when you tried it with 2 officers, that might have been that one, because if you're paying 6,100 for benefits now for 3, I don't know why adding 1 would jump it up $4,000.
Yeah, because we've only spent 3,600 year to date, that's more than half a year. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it marked. Nothing there.
Can I?
Yes.
I have a thought. Can you, gonna be the bridge, I guess, same as far as the percentage increase. I have a problem with that, that's my issue. The administrative assistant, can you explain to me why, how you would utilize, I'm gonna put it right, how to utilize her adding up to 40 hours a week, how would that be utilized?
I'm actually utilizing her a lot more than what she used to be utilized for. She's now the evidence technician. She controls all the evidence. She has the access to the evidence. I don't even have access to the evidence room, which keeps that the way the court likes it, that officers aren't going in and out of the evidence room. But not only that, I mean, she's like the pulse of the PD. Without her, I mean, people complain all the time. They come in and there's no one there. Being a working chief, there's some days I don't even get to the office. And without her there, it's just chaos. I mean, she keeps things organized. I mean, in that little book I put together, I tried to list out her duties that she does. I just can't say enough about her. I mean, as far as how much we rely on her.
I just wanted people to hear it from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, I need her, I mean, and if I do get her to the 40 hours, she'll be there 5 days a week. She won't be doing 4 10s, she'll be doing 5 8s. So she'll be at the office Monday through Friday. She does a lot of stuff, she does all the concealed weapons stuff. She does all the admin stuff for the Shellfish and the Harbor Master. So she does a lot more than just the police department. And I mean, some days I walk in, I don't know how she does it. I mean, her desk, I mean, it's, when you've got 4 guys putting police reports on her desk and she has to jump through all the hoops for the DA's office. I mean, it's just, plus do everything else that she does. It's, and she was over there when I left because we're getting ready for the flood, or getting ready for the repairs for the flood. So we're trying to move things around the office so we can still function when they're doing the repairs.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, we've only got office staff here for 4 days a week, and it seems to somebody looking at it from the outside, it's kind of, wait a minute, there's nobody here. And especially when it comes to emergency, there is ambulance and fire are, you know, a phone call away, but for the rest of the building, there's generally nobody here. And it does strike people as odd. I've gone over there and said, wait a minute, rattle the door, then go back here and make a phone call. And nobody's there, chief is somewhere else.
And people get upset when there's no one there.
Oh, I know. I have myself. Catherine?
Well, I'd like to speak in favor of what he wants is increasing her hours to the 40. Having worked in a similar environment, but a lot more people involved, et cetera, I think she's definitely, it is a full-time job. And does she also take care of your court appearances? I know each department has to have some.
She does.
So she does that too?
Yeah, she's down there for arraignment. She keeps track of, you know, every case that comes through. She's down there on arraignment day, letting the officers know what's happening with their cases.
I could just add to that, every month when we read the reports, it looks like the arrests are up dramatically over what they were in years past. And so that would make her that much busier.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in favor of it. I just wanted you to explain it and just, not justify, but get your take on the whole thing. So that
And I apologize if I didn't explain it.
No,
I mean,
you didn't. You did very well.
I can't express the value she puts on in that department over there.
Yeah, it leverages your time. I mean, some of the stuff, The candidate, she's probably better at the paperwork than you are. How works
Yeah.
that?
Well, she's done, I think there's 4 grants that we got,
Yes.
totaling $25,000. And that just kind of throws a bone to the guys to go out and earn extra money without costing the town.
Mhm.
So it's like an incentive for them. But without her writing that grant, those grants,
Mhm.
and she has been working on other grants. She got a bulletproof vest grant, that'll cover the purchase of 2 vests,
Good.
so.
And there's, whether I like it or not, there's a lot going on. And there's an awful lot of people coming through, we don't know who they are. They're driving up and down Route 1, coming off 27. And it's not just, certainly not a 9 to 5 or a 7 to 5, it's.
Well, yesterday, I would encourage everybody, invite everybody to stop over and see the new office. I moved my office from the back corner to the front corner. And so yesterday, I had a part-timer working during the day so I could paint that office and get moved. And within a matter of 2 hours, he had 4 accidents. So I got called out in my paint clothes to go cover a PI accident up by Indian Road. But, yeah, I mean, but you never know, I mean, but it's been crazy busy.
Okay, can I continue?
Well, I suppose.
Okay. I noticed that you want to increase an officer. You want 3 full-time officers. I'd like you to explain the purpose of the extra officer, and will this help us not using Lincoln County as much as we do?
Yes, the new officer, I would like 2 officers, I'm
I
setting
know
up
you
for
want
it.
2.
The new officer will work days, probably either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday days. He'll work 6 to 4. That'll eliminate the need for overtime, or not overtime. Well, we have been filling Saturdays with overtime, but that'll eliminate the need for part-time coverage or just no coverage at all on Saturdays with that officer. And I don't want to say it'll eliminate Lincoln County. 2 officers would eliminate Lincoln County, but 1 officer would take care of those weekend day shifts where I struggle to fill with the
Okay.
current part-timers.
Because a lot of times on the weekend, doesn't Lincoln County respond to your calls?
On Saturdays, the past 2 Saturdays, we've had no coverage, so
Okay.
they've been taking
They
calls
have
in
taken the
Lincoln
calls.
County.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the townspeople, or the people who watch the PD to know when they can do stuff and when they can't, they know when we don't have coverage.
Yes, they do.
You know, and the night that we had all the car burglaries, and, you know, my officer went home at 4 o'clock and then things started happening. And then when the calls come in Saturday morning and we don't have any coverage, it's embarrassing.
I think the police department is to me, as a resident, when I call the police, I call an ambulance, I call the fire, I want one of our own. I want somebody that I know that's coming up there. And even though I do know some of the reserve officers, I think this makes a better rapport with the townspeople.
Well, being here a year and a half now, I've built a rapport with a lot of people, and you can tell when you come in that they're glad it's you and somebody they know. And nothing against the sheriff's office, but a lot of times they don't have that officer-friendly attitude when they're dealing with townspeople. You know, that they're frustrated to be here in the first place, and they don't take that extra time,
Right.
you know, to do the community policing.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And you and I have talked many times, and I appreciate all the police officers. I think this town is very well taken care of, and I appreciate all their help. Go
I
ahead.
have one question, Chief. When the county comes in, do we pay them?
No. No. There was a time where they wanted to be paid. I had a message left on my phone from the sheriff, frustrated message because of the amount of coverage, but that was back when I first started and they were covering 40+ hours a week. That said that if it continued, that he would have to send a bill. The town manager at the time told him to send a bill. But I don't, we work well together, and they know we're struggling, staff-wise, they know we have somebody in the academy. But what they know in the administrative office and what the road guys, how they feel when they have to come to Wiscasset to cover calls, two different things. They'll help us 110%, they just don't want to take calls in town.
Thank you.
As far as
Sorry, I have to
filling,
leave.
as far as filling the position, do we have any issues or any problems with getting applications for a new officer? I mean, have you done any research on
No, I mean, I have people reaching out on a monthly basis, want to know if we have any openings.
that? Okay.
I have 3 members of my part-time staff that are interested in the full-time position. So I mean, I don't foresee any problems getting it filled.
Okay. I know at one time there was an issue with filling positions. I think we talked about that as far as staffing.
Yeah, I
There
mean,
was an issue.
the problem right now is there's so many openings out there in police work. And in Wiscasset, like the EMS, we're one of the lowest paid, so it's hard to recruit, you know, the top candidates, if you would say, but, you know, Jonathan, who just graduated the academy, I mean, there was a threat that we was gonna lose him to Lincoln County, because he would, you know, just go across the street and make more money. But we did a schedule change. They went from 10-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts, and they have every other weekend off, the way the night shift works. Just that little schedule change, he declined their offer.
Good.
So,
Dennis?
Judy, may I make a comment? I don't want to talk out of turn. In support of Larry and his other position, as an administrator of a crew that's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially in the night when we tend to start getting drunks, overdoses, domestic situations that we have to go to. It's very nice to have that officer sometimes there before we get there, rather than to have to wait 20 minutes for them to send a deputy down from Jefferson. So, you know, the 2 departments work very well together, and we rely a lot on those guys.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else before? Okay, John, go ahead.
So that gets us through the first page, the personnel. And we're looking at utilities, pretty much the same as last year, 4,440. And advertising, not doing any of this. Contracted services, that's something you might like to talk about, the body cameras, because that's what drove the increase there.
no, actually, last year we budgeted 3,700 for the body cameras, and that's the only thing we did for contracted services. Nicole and I weren't aware of the TriTech software contract. We were surprised when we got that bill, and there was a 5% increase, so that was $6,300 that we never budgeted for, because being a new chief, we just wasn't aware of it. And then the Department of Labor, the $1,300 a year for her to come in, that's, I think it was, is it Lynn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just threw that in that line, just to make sure that we were in compliance with the Department of Labor. And then the $300 annual license that I wasn't aware of, that's for our radios and airwave stuff. So basically, it should have been budgeted $11,600 last year, just that we wasn't aware of it.
Let's see. Moving along. Health insurances. Last year we budgeted 54,000. This year it's 76,000. The underlying increase in all our rates is approximately 7.6%. So if nothing changed, it would be up 7.6%. And it's all very much a matter of who takes the coverage that's offered. It can take 80 or so. It's their call, and so we can't screen, shouldn't screen, don't screen people for a while. Will they take this coverage or that coverage? So that's where that number comes. Same on the dental, which actually hasn't changed a lot. And the stipends in lieu of health insurance, that's like $200 a month for people who do not take our health insurance. Sometimes the spouse has it, whatever. So on the insurance, the jump from 72,000 in this current year to 94,000 is basically, you know, what benefits people are taking.
Why do we pay so much for insurance, for dental insurance? Why are they getting 100% coverage?
Because that's in their union contract.
It's highly unusual to get 100%.
But it's in their union contract.
Okay. So, books and publications, next page, 5002, unchanged from 700 postage. We don't do much posting anymore. You can see we've only spent $27 year to date. So the same number is budgeted $100. Let's see. Gasoline, and I guess gasoline and equipment is kind of blended together. We don't have anything there for equipment, and the gasoline line seems like a big increase. I don't know.
Actually, the gas is what it was 2 years ago. With our bare bones budget last year, I cut the gas in half to
Just to
5.
make it work.
And so I'm just asking to bring it back up to where it was.
Year to date, you've only spent $28.60 according to this. Okay, we can talk.
What's that?
That's what I was looking at, the 2860, wondering why,
Year to date, they almost spent
which is what, 7 months?
Yeah. You got it. Here's the guy that said, how does this work? Last meeting.
A slow learner.
So those are the changes within that supplies and equipment category. Repairs and maintenance, actually, Chief does a lot of his own repair and maintenance, which is good. And you're going down looking at the vehicles. If you look at the Ford Explorer on line 6051, $1,000 was budgeted last year, 2273 was spent year to date, and 5,000 with the trend. That's not unreasonable. It's a 2015, but again, the life on these, a lot of idle time, a lot of not ideal driving conditions, and it's kind of hard on the vehicles. And the 2016 Ford Explorer, next line, 6052, same thing, budgeted last year, $1,000 spent so far, $1,500, budgeting $5,000. You know, not an unreasonable figure. The reality is we get some help in public works, and so it's lower than it could be. And tires and listed out what needs to be replaced. Clifford?
I have a question. Okay. The Crown Victoria. Now, it says nothing. I'm assuming you don't use it?
We don't have it. That was sold when I first came.
That's
That was
right.
for Chief.
That's right. That's right. And I know that you have in your capital plan a new cruiser, a new cruiser. But did you put in the budget anywhere to have that decaled and all that? Is that anywhere in here?
Yeah, that's down under, oh, I just read it somewhere. That is somewhere else.
Is it under 5016? Police decals, uniform patches, replace outdated OC spray,
Yeah, that's it.
3,600 for 2021.
Yeah.
It's gonna take $3,600. I mean, that's what you budgeted to put the new cruiser up on the road, switching everything from one to the other.
No,
I didn't think so.
no, that's in the capital.
Oh,
Yeah. The decals, it's like $750 to decal the cruiser, but the setup, the new cruiser setup is in capital.
that's what I wanted to know,
Yeah.
where it was.
Yeah.
Yes, Ben?
Yeah, under the 6053 tires, it says 1,200 a year for 3, but we've only got 2 cruisers. Shouldn't it be 24 or 30
Well, we will have, I'm not looking at getting rid of a cruiser. I'm not looking at replacing a cruiser with a new one. I'm looking at keeping 3 cruisers,
Why would you need 3 cruisers?
because a lot of times we have guys going to court on their own. My contract says I get a take-home car, but I don't take one home because we don't have enough cars to do that. When I have the SRO, I've had the SRO before, because we were down a cruiser, driving his truck to the school.
I thought he was supposed to use a cruiser.
He was, but we didn't, the one was broke down.
It was broke down. Okay.
And then just happened to be, I had a pretty, I don't know what you want to call it, a pretty serious call on Bradford, Lowell Town Road, and I didn't have any backup because I didn't want him responding in his truck, and the county ended up coming, all because he didn't have a cruiser. So if we get the 3rd cruiser, which I'm hoping, then I will have a take-home car, and I'll be able to respond from my house if there's any very serious thing. But it's just a need for the 3rd car.
Plus, if one car out of 2 is being repaired,
Right.
so we can fill in.
When one of the officers goes to the academy, they use their own car?
Yeah.
They do. Do they get reimbursed for mileage and
They
all
do.
that?
Yeah.
Because I thought that was one of the reasons why we kept one of the cruisers. Maybe it wasn't.
Well, that might have been one of the reasons why they had the 3rd car with the Crown Vic.
Yes.
But I mean, I drove my truck to Mechanic Falls to interview a domestic violence victim, because we had the SRO work, and I had another guy come. We didn't have enough vehicles to do it.
Okay.
So we use our POVs a lot, when we should be using a cruiser.
Okay.
So that explains some repairs and maintenance. Next page, staff expenses 7001. Didn't budget anything last year for dues and fees, and that's probably an oversight. So 700 is down this year. Travel and meetings, same as last year, even though you've spent $800 year to date. So,
I don't have the same thing you have, so we're at 701, 02.
7002.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's okay. It's okay.
So that mileage there, that is for the guys in the academy. That's their reimbursement. And we've had 2 guys in the academy, so that's probably why it's.
Okay. Let's see, 703 trainings and education, we've explained all that. More trainings needed, more categories, more frequency. Especially with another officer. Uniforms, new officer, new uniforms, I'm assuming.
Yeah, the 8,000 seem, looking at it here, I don't know, what do you guys have in yours?
8,000.
Yeah, that seems a little high for me. That might have been the figure with 2 officers. So I'll have to double check that number.
All right. Health screening is 7005, top of the page. 975 and 975 last year, this year. Like in Medicare, those are straight percentages of wages, as is the retirement. Debt service, there's a copy of there, 134 a month, which is unchanged. And then miscellaneous expenses, same as last year, $500. And that is it. And the grand total on mine shows 19%.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's base. And then the last thing that the chief is responsible for is next page 124, school results alcohol. So wages wise, same as last year. And that's what drops, health insurance. That's the reduction. 17,000 was budgeted last year, 12,000 was budgeted this year. And so that means there's a reduction in the total insurance, and that pretty much carries all the way down to the totals. That seems fair, Chief? Okay, that's what I got.
Now, the resource officer, I know that goes into the school budget, correct? They reimburse us for
No.
this? No?
This is
I
the first
thought they
place
did.
this is the first place I've worked where it hasn't come from the school budget.
That's where it was supposed to come from.
I was gonna say.
We gave it a pilot year, the
Yeah.
first year, and then it was supposed to come from the school.
Wasn't there a previous chief that said, no, want the town to pay, so the town is his boss?
You're right. That's why they did it. Because if it was in the school budget,
They were in charge.
they were in charge when he's up there. If it's in our budget, he's under your control.
That's the way it was explained to me when I came.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Is that what you?
I think I should be in charge.
But what we talked about was that's correct, but when he was there, we were gonna be reimbursed for the hours that he was at the school.
But I think there was something involved after that, and I think Judy's
I was off for a year, no, you're right. I wasn't-
Judy's right, that there became an issue because the school was paying for them, basically. And they would have control of him for that 26 weeks or how many weeks they are at school. They could tell him he can't wear his uniform, they would be under his control. That's the way I understood it. Am I correct, Judy?
That's what I understood.
And so that's why it was changed and put into the
Was
town
that the
budget.
RSU at the time, or was it?
No, we were Wiscasset, Wiscasset.
I thought that it was because the town really wanted this SRO. Like over at the school, it seems like it's something like put on us by the town. I don't know that we ever,
No,
I think we even had a superintendent who talked about not having the SRO, and the town felt really strongly that we should have an SRO.
I've never heard that.
There was
Yeah,
a
and
feeling
there was
at
even
school,
a different guy.
petition Not to have one
Yep,
at the school,
I don't think the school cares
but that
so
was
much
not,
for that position.
I don't think that came through the administration. It came from individuals, I think.
Yeah, because it's never come before the board, I mean, as far as I know.
Yeah, there was a time when you had, it was the year that you resigned, and then there was an election, right? And I can't remember his name.
Larry, go ahead.
Right, and the reason I remember it is because he said something somewhat outrageous in a meeting about how he remembered when there were men principals. You didn't have, okay, you didn't have to have the SRO.
Soon we forget.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Larry Gordon.
Yeah, and, but that was, the town really wanted to keep it because of those lady principals, or I don't know.
Well, I mean, we keep putting it on to the ballot, and the voters keep saying yes, that they want the resource officer up there. And personally, I think that that's where he's needed, that it's needed as a resource officer in the school.
We've had some pretty serious complaints come through the SRO that led into other things.
Now, he goes to the middle school, correct, on Federal Street also?
He does. He's in the academy now. But my filling officers have been going there. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at the school. Kim knows. You know, I mean, he was assaulted up there just a few months ago. So I mean, there's been a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but we've had some pretty serious domestics come in through him. Kids feel comfortable talking to him. We've had a pretty serious sexual case come through there. Of course, Lincoln County, the detectives have followed up on that, but they ended up making an arrest on that. But that all came through him. So, I mean, I think it's a really needed position. I think because of his training level, you know, I think that position could do a lot more. But I think when he gets back from the academy and then goes to the SRO training, I think he will feel a lot more comfortable in that role. But I think it is a vital thing. I mean, I'm big with the kids. I go down to the elementary school 2 or 3 times a week. I have DARE starting up in 2 more weeks down
I was
there.
going to ask you about the DARE program.
Yeah, that's starting up in 2 more weeks. But I really feel you have to get to the kids before they get to the high school and middle school.
Yeah. I think think
So I
they
really
need
think
somebody
it's
to
a
go to. They need somebody that they can trust and go to, especially when it comes to maybe their home life or something like that, that they feel that they can talk to.
Well, for instance, yesterday, we had an unfortunate situation where DHS came in and called me yesterday and wanted me to go to the elementary school and pick up a kindergarten student that they were removing from a home. My Sergeant Perry was over there, he was filling in for the SRO yesterday, so he was at the elementary school. But when he had this 5 or 6 year old student in the office and I walked in, you could see the kid light up because he recognized me from the cafeteria. So it's just those bonds that you build.
I'm surprised to hear that the school wouldn't want.
Well, this was a couple of years back when
I'm still
it
surprised
came
to
up
hear
as
it
a thing
though.
that was funded.
Yeah.
I think it's,
Yeah.
I think it's,
It's not everybody.
yeah, I mean, when you have somebody in there that, you're gonna have the right person in there. Because once you start ruffling feathers, you know, it's hard, and I think, you know, some of the people that have been in there in the past that may have ruffled feathers, makes it hard to move forward, but I think we've mended all those things. I haven't received any complaints in a long time, and,
I know when we didn't have an SRO up there for a while because of scheduling, I had a couple people ask me, where's the SRO, is he coming back? You know, that they felt that the kids needed them up there. And so I'm glad they are, yeah. I'm very much in favor of that program, very much.
and it's, you know, with one officer working, it's that other person that you can draw on in an emergency. I've called him out of the school more than once for backup.
Thank you. Yes, Judy?
In back a ways, when you made a statement, I wasn't sure, Ben was looking at if he heard, when you said, Judy, you're right, to me, I want to make sure you.
How did you get that in, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Had to do it.
So I would just like to point something out, because Ben said earlier, was talking about raises, that I was putting in for a 5% raise. That's news to me.
Well, that's what it says in here. It was me that made that statement.
I didn't,
5% over last year.
yeah, I didn't put that in.
No, so who did?
So-
I don't know, I thought you would just would please with me and give me a raise, but
But
no, I'm good with 2%. I
Just
don't,
call it a
Thank
typo.
you.
yeah, I didn't ask for a 5% raise, so.
Wonder
We'll just call it a typo.
who fed it
I'm
on.
good with whatever everybody else is getting.
Okay, thank you, because that, as I said, I said in the beginning, I have a hard time giving somebody a 5% raise and other people 2%. I have a hard time doing it, unless it can be really special. I'd rather give you,
Thank you.
your secretary 40 hours a week.
I would rather have her 40 hours.
This is all I figured. I'm glad we got through how much we got through. So going forward, obviously, unless Selectman Slack intervenes, we're not going to meet on Monday. He did ask me, and I said, "When do you insist?" So it's probably a group decision.
Monday's a holiday.
I make a motion, we don't meet.
How's that?
I said, I make a motion, we don't meet, it is a
Well, I
holiday.
hate to tell you, but you're not the one that can make the motion, it's the board.
I'm gonna throw it out there anyways as a taxpayer.
As a reminder.
You want to be on the record? Okay.
What does the board think? Do you want to?
No, no,
No.
Oh, heavens.
Also, it
No, no, it's a joke.
was, you told us it was a holiday last week, so I already made, or Monday. I have a landmark.
Okay.
A big
fine.
President's Day party.
That's fine.
So,
A few of others.
looking at what's ahead of us, I think we could reasonably meet next Thursday and the following Thursday. And I think that would pretty much wrap up the big stuff. There'll be some smaller ones, but on the Thursday after that, I'm happy to I'll take out 3 days and correct some of the things that we talked about. So next meeting, I haven't even had a chance to talk to Rob Victor, but he'll be there about Parks and Rec. Dwayne's on vacation, but he's scheduled for next Thursday. Public Works. Let's see, Public Work, Municipal Building, and Transfer Station, that'll be Ted Snowden, who's plowing. I've tentatively figured in for today. And let's see, what else are we left with? We're left with Waterfront. Now, the Waterfront Committee is bringing their proposal in front of the board this coming Tuesday, so whatever comes out of that, there'll certainly be a fee increase, and we are talking about them having their own electricity meters, so we don't have to wonder who's using it, who's paying for it, what's equitable, and what am I left with?
Revenue as well.
Okay.
Revenue is not on here.
Oh, yeah, no revenue yet. And again, we get it.
So when we look at revenue, do you then go back and revisit budgets in terms of revenue? Or are you looking at them in isolation?
Oh, no, we can't look at it in isolation. We've got problems, like Dennis there, he's hoping to get revenue because he's got the expenses. We've got the rec center. There's a persistent gap there, so we've got to decide how much of a gap the town is willing to assume. And so what we do is, once we look at the spending side, then we look at the revenue side, and then see how the budget is shaping up, see what kind of percentage increase is there, then figure out where it's going to come from. Do we raise taxes, do we this, do we do that? The usual things, do we defer, do we reduce?
I'm curious, it's easy enough to find projected revenues from past years. I'd be very interested in seeing what some of these, you're going back a couple of years here. When we look at revenues, will we see what their actual revenues were?
Well,
and
yeah.
not just their projected?
A couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. Can't keep going back.
No, I'm not asking you to go back a decade. I'm just saying, it's nice
yeah,
to
we show-
see more than 2 years
No,
here,
it'll be
and with
sim-
revenues.
It'll be similar to the format here.
Right,
All the
great.
budget results received, budget received. And again, there are some places where revenue is increasing. Rec center, apparently. Our impact fees through code enforcement. They're building and things going on. So there are some revenue, some positives. I don't know about the revenue sharing from the state. Promises, until I get a check, I don't believe it. Stuff like that. And,
We've been supposed to give 51% to the school for years. We've never, ever seen that. So
and let's see,
I agree with you.
I did see some comment from the superintendent that the school budget charge to us should not be much higher.
They're starting their budget.
Yeah, that's what they're saying now.
Yes, Judy.
Speaking of revenues, I know you said that property taxes is getting less, people are paying their back taxes.
Yes.
How about sewer
That's
bills?
sewer bills. I won't say they're just getting used to it, but Bernice cleaned up all the overdue stuff, so now we would have to, years worth before it would go to lien.
Judy, were you thinking of Wayne Moore's
Well, there
bill?
were several,
Because I think that
several
Wayne Moore is paid up,
Yes.
correct?
I believe
That
he
was a
has.
huge one. It was 14,000 or something like that.
Yeah, that was one, but there was others.
Oh, yeah, there were.
2,000 here,
Mhm.
5,000 here.
No, but they're clean, yeah.
We've done a very good job as far as cleaning up back taxes and the sewer.
Mhm.
And hopefully,
Keep it
it
on.
will stay that way.
Yeah, we just have to stay on top of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, oh, yes. And you have a request for the basement
Yeah, we
on Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
which, you know, my view on that is,
But
let's see, what was I going to say? Yeah, once we look at the expenses and look where the revenue is shaping up, then we get an idea how much revenue we have to cover. Do we go to the taxpayers? We're not going to go, unless the board decides, we're not going to go to increase the sewer charge this year. It'll be a gap year or a hiatus, but we should be increasing that as we go along. We're looking at fees here and there, gathering information about what other towns are doing.
I'm still curious about, and I think that you and I have discussed it, as far as the, when we did the sewer increase, I couldn't remember if the motion was that we waited a year. I can't remember.
Before charging?
No, we went up 1 year. It was like a 30,
Yes, 30%, yes.
it was a big increase, but we didn't do the big increase. We came down a little bit.
Went in the middle.
We went in the middle, and I can't
Raise
remember
again,
if we
don't we?
said we were gonna give them a year grace or not.
I don't,
Well, I don't remember what the board said, but I do know that Rick said there's all sorts of stuff going on. Just give them a break
That's fine with me.
for 1 year, recognizing that, you know, we should be increasing our charges in line with our costs. Because we can't fall behind.
Well, if we do it incrementally, it won't be a 30% increase
Right.
each time.
And as Ben mentioned at the last selectmen's meeting, you got caught with a huge increase on the taxes. How much was that percentage?
When we closed the schools, when we,
Was that what it was?
we had 14%.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was originally
22.
22%, and then we took 600,000 to bring it down to a 14%. Because originally, when we got done with the budget, it was a 22% increase.
But that was something that people
They knew it
voted
was
for.
going to
Like,
happen.
this is what the town chose to do.
Yeah, yeah.
They chose to close the schools knowing it was gonna cost millions, and they went for it anyway.
I agree with you, but when you sit in these chairs and
I
have to
know.
tell somebody
I
that
know.
taxes are going up 14 to 22%, that's a hard thing to swallow.
It is.
But if we
I don't know why
had
you would never vote for
management
that.
then that kept us up on things, we wouldn't have had a 14% either.
Very true. I agree with you. We were given false information and led down the rosy path that we shouldn't have gone down.
Primrose path, yeah.
It's pay now or pay later. I mean, you can't avoid it. It's just, anyway, that's, if everyone's
I
in
think
agreement.
Ben's talking about was the auditor that we had, that was embarrassing.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
It was the auditor that he told us we had $1 million and we did not have $1 million.
But if we had known all of that during the budget process, we
Right.
could have adjusted a few things.
Yeah, but it was too late by the time.
But it wasn't all the auditor's fault.
No, it was not all the auditor's fault. I agree with you on that. Judy's grinning. She didn't expect
Ben's
me.
fault.
I think that was just before you left, wasn't it?
I think it was your fault.
This is where the compliments gonna start flowing?
When you lived your dreams, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? We're out of here.
You all say that,